What a long day at work, Ethan mutters to himself, closing the laptop lid and leaving it on the desk. Mentally exhausted from his work at Hydro One, prepping distribution construction drawings for the expansion of the power grid in northern Ontario, he heads out of the office and heads towards his car in the parking lot. Walking through the snow with his coat on, he stops for a moment to enjoy the cool breeze and setting February sun. Continuing walking and staring up at the blue sky, the next thing he realizes he is falling. Not because of slipping on ice, but because he stepped in a rather large bucket. Now, a bucket in of itself outside is somewhat unusual, especially on a snowy February day, but the main thing that Ethan realizes before whacking his head on the ground is that it is made out of wood with a metal band around its top and bottom, and is way too large to be a bucket and too small for a tub. "I told you it wouldn't work!" The very tall, graceful woman shouts at the comparatively shorter man. "It must have worked!" The engravings all lit up, and the 50 people around us are passed out and unable to move from the energy drained from them. He snarls back. "Maybe you didn't press the glyph stone properly. It's a glyph stone. It takes no special function. Hell, we even have this exact one as one to flush the plumbing in the castle. My point still stands. You calling me incompetent. You blithering old rockhead no good, but the similarities and traits are quite related. Knife ears. Why, I'd never do this in formal company, but the woman stands up, arms outstretched, and dumping the contents of one of her many pockets into her hands, sets off a massive fireball in the stone room, directly at the man. "'Tis enough, that an elderly green man, hunched with age, wheezes his way up the steps to where they were arguing, using the last of his energy to blow the fireball into the wall, where it explodes harmlessly. Now I know yous get along as well as Ol and Elfire, but could you at least try to kill each other after we's moved the channel as resentful?" The other two look around the room and realize an all-out battle in the middle of the most powerful summoning circle for the last 2,000 years would probably be a bad idea, as even though it is dead, enough mana flooding it may cause it to misfire, and who knows what it would pull or use for its source for the next summoning. Over the course of the next half hour, they move all of the channelers to the hospital area to give them some rest and let them rebuild their strength before they try again. As they walk down the main stairs, they hear the howls, screeching, and snapping of last month's failed summons. The elderly green man mumbles, "The council will na be hap about this. We needs a arrow. Hopefully we's get one soon." Ethan Mitchell location, half in a bucket waking up. All I can feel is my head. It hurts. Real bad. Not. I got nailed in the back of the head with a soccer ball bad, but still pretty bad. Staggering to my feet, I quickly lose balance and fall into the bucket. Bracing for landing on its metal band, I put my hands out to try and catch the sides, so I don't end up with a ring-shaped bruise on my chest. I end up moving too quick and have plenty of time to move my hands as I fall. I manage to clumsily roll to my side to not be impaled by it. Carefully standing up, I am glad that I avoided becoming that newspaper headline man killed by being stabbed by Bucket, and man versus Bucket. Bucket won. Looking around, I notice the rest of this room is dark, with the only light I can see coming from a window in the back wall. Looking at the floor, it is finely cut stone. Now I don't know much about architecture, but finely cut stone is not something used much today, so I either fell into the old district of the city or someone spent way too much money in this section of office space. Turning around to see if I can see my office, I faintly see a very large door on the wall behind me. Must have really hit my head, and someone is now making a joke of it. Walking towards the door, I realize it takes me many more steps than I expect to get to it, and it is dark here. Reaching for my phone, I quickly shake it to turn on the flashlight. Looking around, I am in a giant room filled with a few oversized buckets, mops, brooms, rags, and unmarked glass flasks. Still confused on why the janitor's closet has wooden buckets, I head to the door and search for the handle. I find the handle. It is right in my face. A big brass knob the size of an orange. Grabbing it, I open the door and shine my light into the dimly lit room. Looking inside, I immediately slam it shut as the cacophony of animalistic snarls and growls alerts me that they are very much awake and seemingly very hungry. I hear several thuds and crunches against the heavy door, and it shakes a few times from the impact. Leaning back on the door, I feel it bow, but not inwards as I expect. But me leaning on it slightly causes it to bow outward. Panicking slightly, I sit down and try to make sense of it all. Staring blankly at the cleaning shelves for a few minutes, I cannot think of anything sensible. No joke this complicated would be pulled on someone with no friends within 200 kilometers. Those animals looked, sounded, and smelled way too real, even if it was slightly off. Everything is way too oversized and flimsy, and things look almost correct, but the anachronisms do not make much sense. Glass, unlabeled jars of stuff in what is definitely a broom closet. buckets the size of wash basins. I must be having a stroke. I quickly pull out my phone and start dialing 911, only for it to ring and ring and ring. It clicks, saying call could not be completed. Looking at the bars, it says none. Quickly going through all of my options again, the only one left makes absolutely no sense. But however improbably, it must be the truth. I've been isekai'd. Ethan Mitchell, in the closet, but not that one, hyperventilation noises. More hyperventilation noises. Yet more hyperventilation noises. Bonk sound of head hitting floor. I awake again, hoping it was all a dream, or a stroke. Preferably a stroke, so I know that this is a drug-induced stupidity while I am being operated on, rather than something that can come up in my regular sleep schedule. I open one eye and see the stone floor. It must be isekai, I mumble to myself. Great, the one genre I only read 4 stories of. I probably could have pulled a better attempt at living in the Roman era or the 1800s, but of course, it's isekai. So, from the 4 stories I ever read about this, I have 2 main concerns. This is either going to get me into a major hero complex of a land of snake people or dragons, or into a definitely not a harem of mostly platonic relationships with a lot of girls on a halo ring, or a base defense with your elven lover, and a swarm of orphans whilst the powers that be want to go to war. I am not sure which is more terrifying, being the hero or having to talk to women. I could not do either on Earth. How can I be expected to do either here? And being around kids? I can't stand squeaky voices. First things first, from the little known of this topic, whatever pulled me here is probably mad, both from just spending an ungodly amount of energy to get me here, and that I am in the janitor's closet and not doing their bidding already. Considering that is where the hero path lies and probably the highest chance of death, I need to skedaddle out of here immediately. Second, due to the large door for a janitor closet and that I bend stuff from leaning on it, I am short. They are tall. They are probably lighter too if they think this is enough door to stop anything. I stand up again, still with a sore head, but less sore than it was last time. I try to just take a light jump and end up over a meter off the ground, and gravity is low. Great! Now I have to exercise just in case the magic bullshit that pulled me here is on a timer or something. Let's see what I have with me. Lunch pail with no lunch. Scratch that. 2 old granola bars in it. Still in date at least. 1 generic brand ibuprofen in a snack Ziploc. 2 plastic containers that contain my lunch. 1 Pepsi can, empty. 1 large Tupperware water bottle, empty. A leather paper holder, 1 notebook. 3 pens, 1 working from heights training manual. 1 pair of winter boots, dress. 1 set of regular clothes I am wearing. 1 winter coat with toque and mittens. I like having fingers more than having access to individual fingers. 2 phones, 1 personal 56% battery, 1 work 71% battery. 1 laptop, personal 100% battery. 2 USB cords. Jumping up and peering out the window in the back of the janitor's closet, I see that it is still snowing, so no luck on being in a temperate but never snows biome like the other 4 isekais I've read. Great. Okay, main plan, get out of this building. Odds are I am in the dungeon, which is the basement due to all the animals here that they don't want. Step 1. Flee upwards. Step 2. Do not get eaten, maimed, bitten, stung, etc. Step 3. If given chance, look at animals on way out to see what type of world this is. Maybe these are the animals they keep for being hungry for a gladiator arena? I hope not. If so, I am definitely on the wrong level. By the way, considering some form of bullshit pulled me into this place, should I not have some form of connection to it? I should be getting a system prompt or magic voice in my head about welcome to fantasy. You choose your stats, or you are a secret being that has access to stupendously over-leveled spells. And here they are. No, nothing? So, just to be clear, I have been summoned, dumped in a bucket, stuck in the closet, and have either hero or death as my 2 main options right now? I vote nay on that or logic. I storm to the door and then stealthily turn the handle. Well, as stealthily, one can turn an orange made of way too thin brass. The door opens, and using the light of my work phone, I see that many of the animals are asleep. Looking across them, some look like things that would fit right into Avatar: The Last Airbender, while the one in the back looks like a toy version of an Elithid, but the size of the beanbag stuffed animals that sit on the floor. Walking quietly, I get about halfway across the room before I hear a snarl. Saber-tooth tiger. Really? No sudden inspiration on how to fight it appears, so I run as quick as I can to the far end of the hall and plow my way through the door, not taking chances on having time to open it properly. Coming through the door, the saber-tooth tiger that is way too big for the room paws at the door the same way Tom paws at Jerry through the mouse holes. Seeing that mostly dealt with, I see that I am in another animal room. but this one is filled with things closer to sizes I expect. The room is still massive, but the animals are at least the right scale, and I think I see a deer in the background. Moving over from the door, I realize that me barging in did not go without consequences. These animals seem docile, but it seems like I squished what could only be described as the mathematically assumed spherical rat. Instantly, it reminds me of another HFY story containing something about busy rats, ZZ rats. I can't remember, just that they go squish real easy and are supposedly good to eat. Considering I just killed this one, it counts as fresh, so as soon as I get outside, I can start cooking, smoking, or freezing it depending on what I find. Walking out of the room towards a spiral staircase, I suddenly feel warm breath on my shoulder. Carefully looking back, it's the tiger again. I run, with the ZZ rat in my hand being squished and turned into ground beef in seconds. Seeing no use for it now, I drop it as I run as fast as I can. I turn to climb up the stairs and pause on the curve, looking back just long enough to see that the saber-toothed tiger stopped to eat whatever the ZZ rat was. Climbing up, I notice that I can jump and take 2 steps at a time. Given the tread height and depth, these must be some very tall people. I notice it getting brighter, and with the glow of sunlight ahead, I scramble up the steps faster and faster, until suddenly I am in bright daylight. I look around the room. It is circular, and has massive windows that overlook the area around. The carving of the walls is non-existent, seeming quite plain. Looking at the floor, though, it is the most intricately carved anything I've seen. I quickly take a picture of the floor and scan for more doors. Finding no obvious doors, I walk to a window. Why are we 50 stories off the ground? Suddenly overcome with nausea from the sheer height we are at, I sit down on the floor, only to get a static shock off of the floor. Stone does not shock normally, so I look closer at the floor. Now that I spend some time with it, I get deeply entranced and hyper-focus on the sigils and runes carved into the floor that are sealed below the surface. Ithaca Dinau and Hout, Hafiz Thesda startled. I quickly stand up and pivot towards the sounds of what seems like speech. In front of me is a 12-foot-tall rake of a green old man, like someone put an orc through a stretcher in kid pics. He starts swirling his hands and pulling stuff out of his pockets, and sensing that this is either the summoner or the cleanup crew, I bolt. Suddenly, my face hurts. Looking down at my nose, I already am bleeding red. Trying to see what hit me, my right arm and hand suddenly really hurt. Realizing that I was just shocked, I bolt for the stairwell and start descending as quick as possible. I should have really exercised sooner, as I now have a 50-story spiral staircase to descend. As I pass the 10th landing, I hear yelling, followed by more sounds of spells ricocheting off the walls. I see a number of guards ahead, on alert with blades drawn. Quickly taking my options, I hurl myself at the window. It cracks, but does not shatter. Stupid magical glass. I crash into it again, and this time the glass turns to dust, like tempered glass. I feel the wind of something pass near my neck, but I jump out of the window before I can find out what that was. I then realize that these stories are quite tall, and trees are weak as well. Crashing through the window, I am greeted by the vast nothingness of open air and a terrifying drop of 20 m to go. So this is how this ends. Huh? This is taking a lot longer than normal, right? Low gravity. I faceplant the landing, leaving a cartoon splat shape in the freshly fallen snow just past the door, surrounded by broken branches and tree limbs. Hurt, but not broken, I run. Not being an idiot, I run around to the back of the building and run the opposite way of the road. Somewhat obvious? Yes, but still better than being picked up by any schmuck coming down the road and alerting everyone there. What do you mean he got away? A very angry elf woman exclaims at the stretched orc. I says what I says. I confronted the bloke, wee bigger than a boy, and he ran. Now he didn't ran fast, but a stun lock should have planted him on his face. Instead, he got a bloody nose from punching himself just great. Months of effort wasted summoning random creatures, and the one that is the most viable runs off like a bat out of a cave. So it was not pointless after all. Shut up, Rockhead. He could not have gotten very far. We are quite a ways up, and given the fact that he's bleeding out, it should not take long to find him. Up the stairs comes one of the guards, this one wearing multiple stars on the left breast pocket. Sirs, ma'am, I take it your summon was a success, but there have been complications. Complications how? Well, he ran down to the second floor, where we were stationed, and thinking we had another terrified animal, we were ready to subdue it or kill it, mainly ensuring it does not go out the door. And he ran into the window, just bowing. Shook the floor and wall too when he did. So he's knocked out from the impact glass? Good. Should be an easy recovery for him. Well, no. We charged at him, not knowing what it is, and it acting like a crazed animal, we were ready to put it down. One of my crew drew their halberd and swung, "You meathead! You killed the summon! Let me finish!" No. He darted for the window again and broke through. "He what?" He broke through. "Yes, that is the strongest impact glass we have, and on hitting it a second time, he broke through. Also, this was the second floor. He then fell through a tree into the snow. So he's dead by falling? We think so. What do you mean we think so? We just nearly killed 50 of the best mages and magicians the world has to offer. You let him slip through your hands and he is possibly dead, and you cannot confirm it. The issue is, there is blood, but no body. There is nothing showing his presence, and he did not stand up, so he's probably dead. But the snow is too deep for him. Go investigate further. There has been too much day in this day already. And it is only high sun. I am off to bed. About that window was load-bearing. This tower's coming down now. We are evacuating immediately in the snow. Sun is starting to set. Good thing it is cold. There is no way I would have survived this long if the snow was wet as well, I think to myself, as I walk towards a small hut with smoke rising from the chimney. Normally, I would avoid all contact with anybody within 3 days' walk of here, knowing that the law of plot means that the hero plot will want to come and rope me in, but I don't feel a literal plot hook in my spine yet, so I should be okay. Hopefully the summoners turned out to be some dumb cult that no one likes that will deal with itself. As I near the hut, I see another man. He too has pointy ears, but his face is worn, yet clean-shaven, definitely a subsistence farmer, probably not knowing what the giant tower's 6 hours of walking away is. After some very bad hand gestures, I think I got him to understand I'm cold and need warming up, as well as food. Sitting down, he offers me a bowl of soup and lets me dry my winter coat and boots by the small stone fire pit. Noting it is stone, I realize that metal manufacturing must be pretty light if it is not used for fire pits here yet. Now that I am warm, I realize that this place is oversized too. But that does not make sense. The man is my height. Suddenly, there is a pounding of way too large-sounding boots outside the door. I quickly dive under the blankets he provided and hopefully hide. While hiding, I realize my winter clothes and boots as well as my backpack of supplies is obvious in front of the fire. While they are talking, I have no clue what they are saying. There is a low rumble which builds in sound to that of a freight train and then stops. They both look away, towards the sound. I quickly try to dress, but while I am getting my boots laced up, stupid eyelets, I am seen. A much taller woman, definitely elven, but with a worn face stares directly at me, and suddenly squeals in delight at seeing me. They ramble on a lot more, with the now much younger than I thought male shakes his head vigorously, but it seems like he is having none of it. I try to get my coat on, but the elven woman, who I can only assume is the mom, grabs my coat and starts rambling on, with what I can only assume are questions. Not wanting to give away that I am not from here, in case the guards that I ran into track me down, I give basic hand gestures of cold, hungry, home, safe, that the boy picks up immediately and explains to his mother. Mom, for I do not have a better name for her now, in a flurry of activity, turns the chair near the fireplace into a bed, which is the size of a double for me, and I fall asleep nearly instantly. Waking up and stretching, I am still hoping that it was all a dream. Seeing rough-hewn timbers way above me, and feeling even shorter than yesterday, quickly dispels that idea. Standing up, I realize I do not have to jump down to the ground, hoping that something was the right size for once. I look at the chair, and groan in displeasure. I snapped the legs of the chair, by sleeping on it. Walking across the floor to my stuff, I carefully step, hoping there is no basement or hidden death trap of a cellar. Suddenly, Mom comes in the room, and seeing me, quickly attempts to pick me up. I hear a pop, and she grimaces. At least I don't have to worry about being carried away by anyone soon. She gestures to me to sit at the table. I hop up, hungry, and hoping that whatever they have for food is edible to me. Looking down at what is served, I get my hopes up a bit. Gray mush, like oatmeal, and some form of fried smoked meat that looks kind of like pea meal bacon. Starting with the oatmeal, it tastes like oatmeal. At last, finally something familiar and actually the right scale. The flavor of it is a little bitter, but quite good. Could use some syrup, though. Looking around the table, the boy, man, I don't know, runs off and grabs a clay jar of something. Looking in, it looks like jam. I put a bit on the oatmeal and it's good. Reluctantly, he puts some on his oatmeal as well, and his eyes light up as well. Must have been a long time since he's had that. Thinking about Earth's history, the fact that they have jam means they must have good trade to somewhere warmer that has sugarcane, or a really good industry to process sugar, or some magical plant or system that works in colder climates, but is still rare enough to be a treat. I try the meat. It is quite soft, closer to barely cooked boiled chicken in texture, or bean paste, rather than an actual meat-like structure. It is not terrible, although I cannot eat much of it due to the level of grease it has. About a quarter of the way through, I bite something hard within it. Thinking it is a fish bone, and trying to not be rude, I chew on it some more. Looking at the other two, they have no issue and are talking about something. I really wish I knew the language here. After a good 5 minutes, according to my watch, I still cannot break the bone, and it starts tasting like pennies. Carefully extracting the bone from my mouth, the other two look at me funny. Looking at what I pulled out, I am immediately shocked. Why is there a wire in my meat? There before me is a piece of some shiny metal, about an inch long and as thick as a strand of braided wire, in my cooked not bacon. Thinking I literally bit the plot hook now, I quickly grab my coat boots and bolt for the door, only to run into Mom. She is looking quite angry and starts barking at me, pointing at the kidman behind me. Kidman, good name. Through a bunch of gestures, she wants me to eat the wire. Pushing past her, she grabs my collar and hollers at me. Sitting back down, I try to eat it, and even when I get it partly down, I cough and choke it back up. Mom, eventually fed up, lets me go. Finally, with my freedom, I head out and turn left, following a trail that leads from this house to somewhere. Somewhere where crazy ladies not wanting me to eat literal plot hooks exist. I get about 5 minutes down the road before I hear someone running up from behind me. I quickly hide behind a tree. Once the running stops, I hold my breath trying to not make a sound. Boo! I jump. I've never liked jump scares, let alone real ones. Fight or flight kicks in, and I attempt to punch the offender, only to hit Kidman right in the knee as he jumps upwards into the tree. His foot comes flying at my face due to striking something within, and I grab on. Not realizing my strength, I panic, thinking he is building up rage to do more damage. Pulling him down, I yank him out of the tree and onto his back. Eyes wide in shock, he quickly limps off and out of sight. Calming back down, I continue towards what appears to be a small town. Walking into it, I see a poster on what I can only assume is a quest board, showing a picture of one of the guards, one of the mages, and the outline of the tower I came from. I cannot read it, but it seems like they want as many mages and guards as possible. The entire image is surrounded by a black void, with the tower acting as some form of light source overcoming it. Seeing this, I quickly pull my coat closer to me and try to act small, as this feels like another plot hook trying to get me killed, not unlike the literal one in my bacon. I hear a handbell being rung, and next thing I realize, I am in a swarm of similar height elves. They swarm over me and run into the building behind the sign. Sighing, I turn away from that building and start heading towards the far end of this village, where I am stopped by the guard. Fortunately, he's dressed differently than the ones I saw at the tower. Unfortunately, he and his buddies are blocking the road. After more gesturing and some spear thrusts offered by them, I end up being escorted back to the building I just came from. Entering in, the guards depart, and I stare out the door as it closes again. Facing inwards, I am faced by a swarm of kids, all staring at me. Some suddenly get up, and of course the larger men who are starting to tower over me approach, while one of the girls is wrapping the foot of Kidman. Kidman looks at me with hatred in his eyes, and I can suddenly piece together what they think. Random kid stumbles in from forest injures another kid, but does not seem that tall. Bracing for the worst, I tighten my backpack straps and stand palms forward in a defensive but hopefully non-threatening way. It does not work. I am suddenly surrounded on all sides as about 7 of the older kids circle me and start kicking and punching. At first I am feeling the impacts and take a deep breath out to deflate my lungs and stomach in case they end up trying to knock the wind out of me. I slowly spin, trying to dodge as many impacts as possible, but I am a terrible dodger. After the second punch, I am glad that I breathed out, but not from the pain or the threat of being knocked over, but from how it feels like they are just poking me and pressing on me. Suddenly remembering my backpack and the much more delicate laptop within, I start acting quite defensive of it, but also knowing that this is the max impact, me falling over is more dangerous than them hitting me. Weighing my options and not wanting to cripple another person, I take off my backpack and curl up into a ball around it. The kids, thinking they are winning, try to rip it out of my hands and kick me in the back. Those that kick end up with sore feet, and those ripping it out end up with sore hands, due to my death grip on my only possessions I have. Ikwa nyoleth la. I hear shouting from the front of the class, and looking up, another rather tall elven man is there, looking sternly at those attacking me. Eventually, they all sit down, glaring at me. The man up front, Mr. Teacher, suddenly barks at those around me, making those attackers appear beet red, as I can assume what has been said in such a verbal lashing that some of the other kids cover the littler one's ears. Turning to me, the teacher says something much softer, probably some form of apology, Looking around, and knowing that there is a poster for mages out the door, I do not respond verbally, but sit down, near the front, acting shaken and rocking back and forth as if I am stressed. Doing so for a few minutes, the feeling stressed turns out to be real. Here I am, somewhere where buckets break, floors bend, and no one speaks English, and I am stuck in public school.